Call the meeting to order, City Council Budget Meeting Workshop, February 3rd, 2024, at 8 a.m., 501 Main Street, Keokuk. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And turn it over to Monica, right up there and ready to go.
I am. So just to save it time, I handed out a sheet on what, the library had been up to during fiscal year 2022-23. So you can look at that. At your leisure, we do provide a lot of opportunities for the community. So just a wrap up of what we did that year for you guys. Okay, so do you want me to just go through and just kind of, you guys all have the sheets, the same sheets, right? Okay. So as you received, this is our third year of the reductions. So most of the line items here are from that. There's, some from just reducing some of each of those lines. And then I reduced enough to move some into the building repairs. The city engineer and I have been looking, and there's a runoff problem with the addition and then the parking lot. And so it's kind of causing some erosion on the building. So we're trying to get some things settled so that the building won't, crumble. So he estimates that about $15,000. So I moved some funds around from other line items, not additional income, and put that into that on a couple of different things. So travel, we use another account to pay for that. So I reduced that. And then the 6240.
Hey, Monica, could you give us the line item as you're going through?
Yep, sorry. Yeah, I just went back to that. The 6240 is the travel one, which was $100 reduced by. The 6310 is the repair maintenance, which was increased by $5,036, taking it from other ones. 6331 was just reduced by a little bit to offset the budget reduction. 6373, this was reduced to reflect actual spending and also to offset the reduction. 6499 was reduced by $8,000. We changed checkout systems that saved us $8,000, so we were able to reduce that and to help with the budget reduction. 6502 is just adult book materials, and reduce that by $3,000 to offset that. 6508 postage. We just kind of keep trying to reflect a better spending amount, so I reduced that by $1,500. 6514 is juvenile books, so that was reduced by $3,873 for the budget reduction. 6516 magazines and newspapers. Magazines kind of take care of themselves, so that was it's a little bit not so painful to reduce that one. So that was reflecting spending and offsetting the budget by $1,000. 6518 reduced by $6,227, and 6598 just by $600 to reflect spending, and then the miscellaneous category to offset and kind of reflect that. That's on the city budget line items. Any questions on any of that? Right. Then this would be the last year of that. 60,000 total.
Thanks, Monica.
Yeah. If you want to go over Lee County, but that's just an in and out, and the other one. Okay. Awesome.
Good job, Monica. Thank you.
Good morning. We're going to start with housing. All items have remained the same except 6380 temporary labor. That increased by $5,000 due to just the cost of hiring contractors to perform the nuisance abatements. 6402 service publications from that decreased from 700 to 500. The decrease is due to county filing fees being taken out of an incorrect account. So there was an overall increase of $200 between those two accounts. 6413 payments to other agencies. That's where the fees should have been taken out of, and there was no budget for that line item, so that went to $400. 6499 citywide cleanup. Casey wanted to increase that by $1,000. That was just the increase due to rising cost to dispose. This is a service that we provide to our citizens twice a year. 6508 postage increased to 1,000. It was 7,000 to 8,000, and that's due to increased cost of postage.
What do we currently have in our budget for demolition?
At this point, we have 150,000. Part of the agreement on that 150,000 for this this fiscal year was that some of that funding be placed toward rehab of some properties. So we have 2 properties that we received grants for that the city actually received on a 657. That's 1012, I believe, Blondo. And then there's a small house across from the school on North 9th, the Washington School that we also received. So we got grant funding for those, but we also had to do a match toward those. So some of that funding will come out of that. I'm sorry?
Is the plan to sell them?
The plan is actually to do a request for proposal for
Okay,
the
that's-
contractor to submit their, plans and
Okay.
specs, and the council will look at those to see, what those look like. They also are low to moderate income, so whomever ends up with them will have to, it depends on the funding amount, but it's either 5 to 8 years that they will have to comply with that component of the grant.
How many buildings do we have on the vacant property registry at this time?
Oh, did she write that down for me? Shelley, I don't have that number at this point, but I did ask Casey to give us a report on the amount of what she has on the vacant property registry and what she has in court, which is quite a few. And we're getting defaults on those because most people are not showing up to court.
So then the city's taking those properties. Do we have, what I was going to say is I think that we need a budget for some, I would consider that if we have those properties, do we need a budget for more demo? Do we need a budget for more incentives? Is there conversations around that you've had with Mr. Hinton?
Are we taking them or are they just defaulting on
No,
the
they're
fine?
just defaulting on
Yeah.
the fine. They're
Oh,
not
they're
coming in.
defaulting
Yeah,
on the
we're
fine.
not taking those.
But we're moving probably forward towards 657A eventually, yes?
Well, that's going to be a discussion that we're going to have with the council. Some of our, the vacant property registry, I think, has a few flaws, which we had expected, that we were going to come back to the council with some recommendations on. A lot of people would register, but the insurance, a lot of them can't get insurance on the properties. And they're not able to put like a bond type situation or escrow. So they're kind of just,
Well, the question is then,
limbo.
do you need to have a property if you can't insure it or if you can't?
I agree, but that's,
Well,
something
there's a
that,
certain level of that. I think when we're in an area that is this impoverished, some of these houses can't be insured, but people are still living in them.
These are vacant properties.
these are vacant properties.
Well, even on the vacant properties, there are people who are trying to put money into it, and if they had the $40,000 to insure it, it would be fixed.
No, I
And
understand
so
that,
they're
but
posting them for sale for $5,000, and we're doing the same thing over and over and over again. You're not finding anyone who's actually gonna take them. The city takes them, and then what are we gonna do?
well, we
So
tear 'em
Casey
down
and I
eventually.
felt like
It'll
maybe on that
cost-
situation, if we start getting some of the fines, then those fines maybe can go back into like a revolving loan fund to help with maybe repair the properties. But those are things that we're looking at that we will bring back to you as far as trying to make this a better program.
Well, I was going to say is that I think it'd be interesting to see if you could get them registered for like the IFA program for the home repair, for instance, if they are low income and things like that. So how do we have some remediation efforts, I guess?
The IFA program at this point is just owner occupied. I mean, you're talking the.
So they have to be occupied for
They
them to be
do.
able to use that?
They do.
You also have to be affected by COVID. I was trying to send that out to people, and it says that you have to be affected by COVID as of January 21st,
But that's actually
2020.
just the mortgage part of it, isn't it? The
No,
mortgage.
that was the whole application, because I was like, I could give this to people at work, and like, the third requirement is that you were affected by COVID.
Okay. Okay.
Doesn't that just mean you tested
But we
positive?
will get you a report on that. And Shelley, we have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, probably maybe 8 demos. A couple of them are garages. And we did a roof on 1908 Timea just to stop the deterioration because we felt like that house could be saved.
Okay.
And we're, I think, in the process of trying to do a 657.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, building zoning. So line item 6413, payments to other agency decreased by $2,000. And this was just to be in line with the expenditures over the last 2 budget years. Let's see, professional service 6490, decreased by $3,000. The budget was increased last year for zoning subdivision code amendments. Regional planning is still working with the city on these and should be completed this summer. Amendments to Title 5 and 15 will also be needed, but will most likely happen over 2 budget cycles. I'm hoping after Pat O'Connell's discussion with the code amendments that he looked at, that'll cover a lot of the building zoning and health sanitation. But I would like to keep that funding in there just in case we do need to do some other work on that. And supplies increased by $100 just by due to the increased cost of supplies. I would like to say that our iWorks system, not thrilled with it, but we're getting used to it. We still have a year contract on that. I asked Dave if I could reach out. We have a system, it's Payport, that you can pay with a credit card. I did some investigation, and Payport will allow us to put that on our website and at no cost. It just goes toward the fees, that the citizen would pay toward that. So we're going to go ahead, if it's okay with you guys, to put it on the website. And that way, that would save, I think it was going to be $1,000 to purchase that through iWorks. So that was good news.
Any more questions, guys?
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Pam.
I'm going to head out, guys.
Hi, guys.
Not you, Tom.
Wait just a minute, Tom. Celeste.
Okay, for mayor clerk, 6230 service training, I have an increase of 500, just with the unknowns regarding city administrator position. 6499 contractual services, an increase of 1,000, just with increasing contractual costs. For example, the postage meter. And 6599, an increase of 200 just due to inflation costs. And then data processing, 6230, a reduction of 1,000 to reflect actual costs. I left a little bit in there again, just with the unknowns of the incoming person for the administrator. 6499, an increase of 2,000, just with rising costs with Laserfish, G-Works, Total Solutions. Elections, there's no expense. Legal, an increase of 1,000. It seems like we're utilizing legal services a bit more, and we have union negotiation fees. 100,000, sorry. Yeah, that is a big difference.
Well, aren't negotiations taking place in this budget year?
They are. I may have to, some of that then may have to amend the current year.
I would make sure, yeah, we make sure it's in the. Timeline.
I wasn't sure when we'd get the billing for them either. It'll be close to the cutoff. For municipal building, 6371, electric gas, a reduction of 2,000 to reflect actual costs. 6373, telephone, a reduction of 1,000 to reflect actual costs. And 6499, an increase of 1,000, just with rising costs with Permar and Cintas. And then general insurance, an increase of 75,000, which was a recommendation from the state for ICAP insurance. For the TV, 6380 miscellaneous, an increase of 500. I wasn't sure if that cost would increase or not, but I thought I would budget for it. And then franchise fee refunds, 6161, an increase of 17,300. And this is estimated based on energy increases in the historical data that we have thus far.
One of the questions I was going to have is that I don't know how we've handled professional development and for council people in the past, but I did pay to go to a professional development in Clear Lake, and I went up to Iowa City, and I think that it's something that we should incentivize. We have 9 council people, and it's, not a small penny to be able to go and pay to go do those things. And I was just curious if there's interest in putting some money in the budget for professional development for council people.
I think that'd be a good idea too. I don't know if others would go to stuff, but things like the League of Cities conferences and some of those trainings are really good for extra knowledge for us.
You mean to like pay for the travel costs? And I mean, we pay for the training, right?
Just like
Oh, gotcha.
What I was going to say is you could budget, for each council person up to $500 reimbursement, for instance, annually for professional development. And that way that, they can make a choice as to what they want to do, but it covers a little bit, at least some of that, and provides an incentive.
Yeah, that's up to you guys. If you want me to build it in.
You just want to see if we have a consensus amongst the council right now, and yeah, so I think
Well, I think that it's really important that we get trained
so like,
on
it'd be
how to
like
counsel.
$500 per council person. So, yeah, $4,500. If you
$4,500.
want us to look for that. Okay.
Well,
would-
what do we currently do? I know like when I went through the League of City training, the city paid for that, but I don't know what that actually cost. And I just did that the one time, back in like 2018. So
That's what the past practice has been. It's been for the League of Cities initial training, I believe.
yeah.
Or if there's money left over and they offer a course that a council member's interested in,
Sure.
then we would pay for them to, the cost of the conference.
Yeah. So my question is, what was that cost and how does that compare to the proposed 500 a year, just so we can kind of see what we have been doing and how that would be different?
Typically, the expense for any sort of training with the League of Cities is around $50. And then there's the travel, actually. So like I drove up to Clear Lake. I stayed at friend's house instead of a hotel, which, would have been an expense. And then also, I went to Iowa City, and the next training is probably going to be in Ottumwa. So it'd just be the reimbursement for the mileage. But we also have opportunities like, I don't know how we could treat going to like Des Moines.
So, it would be like separate line item. I don't know how the travel is a separate line item.
4,000 is currently in there for training, but that it doesn't just specify for council persons. So we could add some to that.
Is there a lot of, I feel like there's only a few of us that seem interested. Is there more interest? If you had the opportunity, would you go?
I definitely think that it'd be a positive to be able to take advantage of that to grow as a councilman.
I'm definitely going to plan to go after Angie and I get our business. Right now, my schedule doesn't allow that because of where I'm at, but as soon as July comes around, that's the goal. So potentially even yet this year, I'll get a chance to get to one. If you look at League of the Cities website, they give all the schedules and all that. So I'm tentatively looking at, this fall, but even if I end up waiting until next spring, I think it's a really good idea because it is, even though we've all either done our own budgets and we've done our own management, whatever. My understanding what they offer is it gives you a little more in detail of how the city council and how some of that actually operates. It also, one of them, they even talk about Robert's Rules of Order and, how it's supposed to be run. And it just, for me, any knowledge is good knowledge when it's something that's going to help the city and help me do my job better.
They do a lot of good day ones too. Me and Linda Marsden probably went to 6 or 7 where you just like go to Iowa City, go to Cedar Rapids, do it for the day and come back. So you don't always have to stay.
So it looks like the consensus is we'll put some money in there for the council training also, or some additional funding, I guess. That'd be the correct term.
Yeah, and if there are any council members that have not gone through that course, it is very beneficial, and I would encourage anyone, or even if it's been 5-10 years, a refresher would be great.
And they do have some virtual options often. So
All right, Tom, now it's your turn.
All righty, go ahead and look at your budget rationale sheets. And this will start out with line item 6210. That was increased $500 due to our NPDES permit coming due. And every other year, each operator has to have their license renewed, and the city pays for that, and that's going to come up in 2025. Line item 6320, property maintenance, we increased that $27,500 due to aging HVAC units and probably what will be additional roof patches. At least one roof patch on our press building. Line item 6331, that increased due to our hauling our own sludge, which is a very small compared to the savings we got by hauling our own sludge. 6373 telephone, that decreased $1,000 because we didn't have the expenses that we thought we might last year, and that could go down even more next year. we don't run into any of those expenses. 6380 miscellaneous plan operations increased $10,000 from last year because the previous cuts were somewhat unrealistic. We're trying to save a lot of money and we went over.
Hey, Tom, I
Mhm.
don't want to interrupt you, but I don't want to forget. What would be miscellaneous? I feel like when we're into the like tens of thousands, can it be
Yeah.
more specific?
We have a lot of different expenses and sometimes it's difficult to decide which account they should come from because property maintenance, when I first went down there, I thought property maintenance, okay, that's like yard care, fertilizer or weed killer. But it came to mean basically anything we own down there. And so I tried to budget that accordingly. But miscellaneous, it's things that might not have well, it's all unforeseen. But we've got our UV process, ultraviolet disinfection process, and we've been trying to deal with our supplier and the brand that we have. I don't know if we got it cheap at the beginning, but it's nearly impossible. It is impossible to get parts for. And we're going to have to do something with that. I looked into replacing that whole process as a capital fund project. And we just can't do that right now. We're just going to have to put it in the back. But hopefully we'll be able to get by with replacing bulbs, fittings, and you have to clean those individual quartz is what they call them. They surround the actual bulb, and those bulbs, they were $45 a piece, but now I'm sure with like everything else, they're probably 60, 65 or 70. I haven't priced them recently because we haven't had to get new ones, but those crystals need to be cleaned every so often. It happens with compressed air. It forces these squeegees on each of those bulbs to go down and do one swipe and come back up. The seals on those have never been replaced, and come to find out they're supposed to be replaced every maybe 3 years or so. Things like that.
Tom, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right line item here because I see 6380 on your summary, an increase of 10,000, but on the actual budget, I see 6380, just a 6,000 increase.
Okay, from 10,000 up to
16,000.
oh, okay.
So I think your summary just
I
had a
must have gotten the
typo in it.
wrong. I must have the wrong increases, the wrong sheet.
You're on the right sheet. It's just a typo on your budget summary.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's the same reasoning. Just different amount. Um, 6402 publications increased $200 due to advertising and notices. And that a lot of it depends on hiring. We just got done hiring 2 people. I don't foresee us having to hire anybody else in the near future. Of notices, a lot of times we have to publish notices and advertising for contracts. 6412 medical expenses increased $100 due to vaccines for new employees. A lot of this is the hepatitis vaccines, and there's 3 of those last I heard. Initial one, 6 months, and then maybe a year or 2 down the road. I don't know, we get billed for that and the drug testing too. We do get the flu shot for free. Okay. I'll check up on that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's that way with all the vaccines. I just don't know. Yeah. Okay, 6489, increase $2,340 to reflect our current contract with LCL Farms. It's a set amount and increases a certain percent, I believe, every year. And so that just reflects that. 6499, excuse me, contractual services. Does y'all sheets have $200,000 increase in that, or is it less?
You skip 6490, Tom.
Oh, 64. Oh, okay. 6490 professional fees. Increased $28,500 due to consulting and investigative lab fees. With the BMRs and with mystery stuff coming down to the plant, a lot of times we try to figure out the source, where it's coming from, what it consists of. And we send those out to usually one specific lab. Sometimes we use different ones, but that's mostly where that comes from.
In regards to line item 6499, the significant increase, if you look back for, I don't know why, but last year only $10,000 was budgeted. And that line item historically is never remotely close to 10,000. So
Yeah.
the adjustment was made to reflect the actual cost over the years.
My sheet does not show that adjustment. It shows it at 12,000.
Sure does, doesn't it?
I'm wondering, is it, so will it be 200,000
On
increased?
6499,
Or is this a budget amendment for this year?
6499, we have 12,000 there, but it should not be.
the first digester.
Every year it was in
Some of
there?
that came out.
Oh, yeah, I'll have to go back to my notes.
Yeah, part of the first digester cleaning came out of that account. It probably shouldn't. But we have a lot of grip basin cleaning that's probably gonna come up. I know there's gonna be one. It won't be anywhere near this $200,000. By looking previous years, and I don't know what came out of it 2 years ago, but it was pretty high there, so I figured I kind of wanted to match that
Mhm.
or come close to it.
Well, we're gonna need to make sure we get this updated because.
Yeah, we're gonna have to
like the
clarify
bottom
this
line,
one.
you know, is gonna need to reflect this $200,000 difference as opposed to what's on the paper.
Okay. Shall we go on to 6501? 6501, chemicals and polymer reduced $20,000 due to sludge composition, different solids and sludge requiring less polymer. That's a good thing. It could even be less, but we won't know until we run. 6507, operating increased $20,000 basically due to inflation. And
6507 would not be staff.
I'm just wondering what operating, you
Yeah.
know what I'm,
A lot of things.
it feels like they're like, between property maintenance, miscellaneous plant operation and this. So I'm just wondering what the breakdown between the three is.
Pumps, motors, a lot of that, piping, valves.
And that stuff does not come out of the 6380. Yeah.
6380. Right. Yeah, 63, it is kind of like an overflow, when we don't have any other account to take it out of. Okay, it's kind of like an overflow when we don't have any other account to take it out of.
But then 6507 is more specific parts?
Yeah, it's kind of, it captures a lot. When we have, lab supplies, there's a lot of lab supplies you don't think about, the chemicals, bottles.
But you have a
they break all
different
the glass.
category for chemicals, so those should
The-
be out of chemicals.
Lab, okay. The chemicals mostly that come out of there is a polymer, mostly. There's just a few chemicals that come out of that one. But general lab, pH buffers, stuff like that, come out of 6507. $65.99 increase due to work boots coming from this account. And we go through boots pretty quickly down there. Something about the stitching and getting splashed with the microbes and stuff. They tend to eat the stitching out pretty quickly. My boots, I think, are going on 3 years.
So boots are not part of uniforms?
No.
And you get new ones not every year?
In the agreement with the union, they can get yearly replacements or 2-year replacements. They're allowed more dollars. I think it's 200 for 2 years and 120 for 1 year. And most people don't get them every year.
That's going to be like a safety committee thing too. If you've got polymer on those, if they're slip sliding around down there, they're not appropriate, that's an OSHA thing. So we'll want to make sure that they are replacing those boots if they need to.
Okay. And we do have slip guards, the cleats available down there, and they get worn sometimes, when it's icy. Polymer on the floor isn't usually a big problem. There's certain areas that could happen, and the guys tend to know to look out for it.
I have a question as to, so your enterprise zone, I'm assuming all of these additional expenses and all of these costs are within your revenue stream that you have? Projected revenue?
Are within what, I'm sorry?
The revenue that you will be, your projected revenue for next year?
I'm not sure exactly what the projected revenue is.
Yes.
Okay.
Just want to make sure. And then also, I guess my curiosity is whether, I know we've been doing a lot of one-time expenses related to capital, like cleaning the digesters. Are we in a path to be able to start building up that, a capital?
The monies set aside for the digester, we were able to find the documents. It's an actual agreement with DNR based off of fines that would have been assessed to the city
Okay.
and to ADM. So there are specific projects laid out within a plan of action. The digester is included in that. The grit chamber is included in that. And then there's a contingency to hold on to a small amount. I'm talking like really small amount of $10,000 to $15,000 for anything else that may come out of that. So that money was actually in the operating expenses, but instead of paying a fine, DNR allowed the city to put that and ADM's fine money into this account as long as we made those improvements along the way.
Good deal. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And we'll get back to you on the, I'll send everybody an email on the $200,000 question under 6499, once we get clarification on that.
And you did absorb an office staff member, right?
I'm sorry, what?
You did absorb like a position, someone from City Hall is doing some of your like accounts payable? Okay.
And I think it's been going pretty well.
Okay.
There's still some things that some glitches that we're working out, but
Yeah.
overall, everything's getting taken care of.
Okay.
Are your staffing levels, please?
I'm sorry,
Your
what?
staffing levels? Like, what do you have? You have,
Right now, we're good.
what do you budget for? What did you budget for staff?
How many people do you have, Tom?
How many people? We have 2 full-time lab techs, 1 part-time. We have 2 maintenance people and 2 operators and a press operator. Except for the part-time lab tech. And we brought him in because there was so much more testing, especially after ADM's problems. And the state's just requiring a lot more. Things are getting a lot more stringent, I guess you could say. And it just came down from the EPA that we're going to have to address PFAS and PFOS in our wastewater. The water department's been working on that, having to deal with it for a while now, and it just came down that the wastewater will too. And that's going to involve a lot of testing and certain procedures that have to be followed for that testing.
So then you have a total of 7.5, and then you.
I'm sorry, what?
7.5 employees plus, and then there's plus you?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Are those 7.5 positions, are those union?
Not all of them.
Not the part-time.
The lead lab tech isn't, I'm not sure if the other lab tech is or not, but there's the head of maintenance is not, but everybody else is for those positions.
So Tom, with losing Arleta, some of that work being sent to here at City Hall, is anybody coming down there and doing anything?
They did initially, but we really haven't had a need for it lately.
Okay.
One of the new hires has really kind of picked up a lot of that stuff and
Okay.
helped out a lot with it.
So Cassie's doing some of
Cassie's-
your stuff?
Some, yeah.
Okay. And then Amy Barnes gets the bills, right? And she
Mhm.
is just doing the billing. She's not doing any of your other book work or anything like that that you know of?
Not that I know of.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Tom.
Mhm.
We have one other thing here. We have hotel motel request. So on that sheet, it looks like there are a total of $229,640 in requests so far. The projected hotel motel tax generally is about, the revenue part is about $275,000. I know this is a tough one, but I have a couple of recommendations for consideration to the council. As you know, 50% needs to be spent on some sort of tourism activities, and then 50% can go to the city. And I would like to see us make as close to that 50-50 allocation as possible. We're having what appears so far is a projected slight decrease due to property tax revenues and a projected decrease in the overall CERC funds. That is like a 33% decrease off the top from CERC funds coming from tourism to the city, and then also a slight decrease in the overall revenues of the gaming money, which are the CERC funds that come to the city. So it's possible that just between the CERC funds in the next fiscal year, we could see about $195,000 reduction in those funds and around a $35,000 reduction in property tax revenues. The option of allocating all the hotel motel tax out, we can also refer some of those requests to, I don't think it's been officially named yet for those of you that have been involved in these meetings with tourism and CERC, but they're looking at a board called Keokuk CERC possibly, and they will have a lot of those funds that used to come to the city for these types of allocations, and we could refer them to that organization as well for funding.
But that organization is not up and running yet, but you're saying it will be in this budget year that we're talking about?
Correct.
Could you provide some background and history about what CERC is and how that is operated and what's been going on in conversations? I'm not sure if everybody on the council knows what's going on.
Sure. So CERC funds are funds that come from casinos that are close to our community that would draw our citizens in for gaming. And they're required by law, it's my understanding, to give a percentage of their revenues to communities that that people would support that gaming organization. And generally what we're talking about is Catfish Bend in Burlington. So they have given that money to tourism in Keokuk for years. It's come to the city, and then the city allocates those funds out in different ways. For example, all these requests for hotel motel tax that come in, that's generally where most of that money has gone. What's
CERC
that?
funds have always gone just into the general budget.
Yes.
Okay, I thought you said that that's where those requests have been going.
No, but some of the funds have paid for those requests.
Okay.
Because it all comes out of the general fund.
That's
once
what
it comes
I just
in.
wanted to
Yeah,
make sure, because I was like, hotel motel tax and CERC funds are two different buckets.
That's correct. Yep. So because if you look, we're spending over the 50/50 anyway. But the Gaming Commission was not satisfied with the way the city was reporting what they were spending the money on. So they have made this change that the money will no longer go to tourism and then to the city of Keokuk, that it will go to tourism. They are going to form a nonprofit, and then they are going to distribute those funds through a grant application process or an application process, so to speak.
So in practicality, they are going to take over a request process for items that we're looking at, like the care request for 5,000 for Juneteenth. That would be something that in future years, we would direct them to this CERC board instead of our hotel motel request. Is that what the?
Very possible, yes. And the city could also, I mean, anybody can make a request for funds from them if we have a project that is what they are looking for.
They did say that they're wanting city representation on that board, so if you're interested, it would be good to reach out to them if you're wanting to be a part of that.
I think that they would set it up similar to, like, Fort Madison has a CERC board, and they have been operating that way for, I don't know, a long, long time. But they have a representation, so in their bylaws, they have it broke down, like there's so many city representatives, there's so many tourism, economic development, chamber. I don't know exactly how that is, but they're going to model it after that. So it's going to be representing the different, I would say, sort of community foundation and tourism and economic development, community and economic development organizations in the community.
So in this next fiscal year, 25, we're looking at a 33% reduction in that money. And then fiscal year 26, a 66% reduction. And then in 27, we will receive zero out of that.
And I think traditionally the amount has been around $450,000, but it's changed because of gaming has opened up in other states, and so that has reduced the overall pot for the state of Iowa. And then also Des Moines County, so our CERC region is Des Moines and Lee County. And Des Moines County, because we do not have the actual casino in Lee County, we receive $150,000. Approximately a certain cut of that money goes to our foundation, our county foundation. Des Moines County's foundation was not receiving that. And so now there is also a plan for that to start to happening. So overall, the amount that we've received traditionally is reducing, but then the city, for instance, they're making that cut at that percentage rate as well.
So what I'm kind of worried about right now is just that we have a funding mechanism that we've been utilizing for a very long time. Example, the Keokuk Fine Arts Council. That's where they get their budget from, is this hotel motel tax. And with this transition that we're talking about, if we are to take Administrator Hinton's recommendation of cutting this in half, that's only $137,000 that we have total to dish out. Organizations like the Fine Arts Council, if we cut them out of that, then what do they do if this circ board doesn't get up and running the way that it's supposed to in time for this year's budget for that organization?
At the meeting, we talked about making sure that we were on the same page with them, because I said the same thing. The worry was either the group's going to go to both and ask, so then you've got, kind of a double dipping situation, or can we communicate like, we're not able to, are you able to? So that we don't lose things like the Fine Arts Council, Grand Theater, things like that.
Mhm.
So they said they would be up and running by July.
Well, and I think we have to make sure that we recognize that the $40,000 that we have contributed to Main Street, Keokuk Inc. is a contractual agreement that we have, and that we do have to spend 50% of the 51% or 50% of the motel tax on some sort of community and economic development, tourism related event. So when you look at these other requests, then most likely we have a serious conversation with the new circ board about
Yeah.
where that goes.
I mean, the proposal is, because we have to keep Main Street and then we have to keep tourism, that we just cut everything else regardless of what they asked for, and then see how it plays out come July. That's, I think, what I'm hearing. And that's still above the 50% that Administrator Hinton would like to see us cut down to.
What's everybody thinking?
I would recommend maybe that we form an ad hoc committee to be able to work with the circ board, the newly going to be established circ board, to identify how we can provide some assurity to this next year for the organizations that have made requests to us, and also how we can work together
I mean,
through this transitional period.
I mean, if the circ board is going to be established in July, are they ready to have their distributions on July 2nd?
I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to. I mean,
But
they should be well
how can they
prepared.
make their decisions before they're established on who they're going to fund?
I mean, they said by July. So honestly, in my opinion, they should be forming now.
Yeah.
They need to
I would
be.
agree.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, they need to
they're
be
aware of
having
what's
these meetings right now. so
they're
that
aware of
come
what's
July,
happening.
They can fund the things.
Yeah. Quick side note, based on the law, I'm not sure that the Lydia House request falls under it. I don't know how
Well, it doesn't matter about that request because we're,
no, but I mean, that's something that they could apply for circ funds.
Sure, yeah.
But I don't know that it falls under hotel motel. So just heads up, it's not necessarily tourism convention.
yeah.
So there's just that for thought.
Yeah, we definitely need more conversations with CERC. I mean, if I had a letter from CERC saying, yes, we're going to fund the Fine Arts Council and the Lake Cooper Foundation and the Arts Center and the Ram Park
When I think-
Pavilion and all those other things that we have always done, I'll feel a lot better about.
I don't know that you're going to get that answer, because I tried to get that answer. And
Right.
the answer was more so like, part of them wanted to have a match grant application. I said, well, most of these groups don't have the match available. That's the reason they're coming to ask for them. And then the other is like, okay, well, on a case-by-case basis, we'll have them do the grant process. So I don't know that we're ever going to get a, yes, we will
I think maybe what we need to do then is look at the same way the CERC funds are phasing out over time, is we need to look at maybe getting to that 50% over time, just so that we can assure that some of these things
Go for the
Go
next fiscal
unfunded.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good place to start, is the ones that have been traditionally funded by the city, is to keep those for this FY '25, and then cut those other ones that are new to us. Refer them to the CERC board, because they're gonna have to be up and running. They have already made it clear that they are gonna retain the funds, and they are. So, they're gonna have to have their system in place, because they're gonna have that same obligation of providing what they are spending that money on to the gaming commission for the license holder.
And just heads up to council, like the Fort Madison Cirque, they have pledged like over $1 million to the marina. So like that can also be something that they do. They don't have to say yes to all these little groups. They can say, we're going to do this for 5 years. So the groups have nothing.
So, Finance Committee has met with them, so I'm not thinking that we need to have another committee. Can the Finance Committee
Right, we
just
can do whatever.
take that on as their, or? Yeah, because committees after committee after committee that come back to the Finance Committee, then come back to the city, I don't think is necessary.
Mhm.
Well, there's some things on this list too that, I mean, they're asking for this amount of money, but that doesn't mean we have to give them that amount of
You know, I
money.
mean, we could always do a 30% deduction too.
Huh?
We could always do a 30% deduction like we have, or something similar.
Like Lee County Historical is new,
Yeah.
but how much money do they get from Lee County to do the things they do, as opposed to, as the city need to step up to? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that they aren't a great organization. I'm just saying they're new. I mean, huh?
I think we need to meet with the CERC board in some capacity. I know. Yeah.
Is there anyone in here who wants to be on the CERC board if they ask as they're forming it? Does anyone have interest in being on that? They said 2 to 3 members potentially.
I would have interest on that.
I would too.
So I guess my take with wanting to make the cuts and the uncertainties is I would look at only funding the ones that we do annually every year. And then from that point, figuring out where we make reductions on those ones to get to where we're comfortable funding them, but also still making the cuts that we're going to need to start making. It looks that way. Lake Cooper's been almost in every year. They did take 1 year off, at least over the last 5 years or so. But the rest of the asterisk ones are always every year ones, yes.
This is the first time Kara's asked.
And we're still working on revenues too, so maybe it's a no up front if we have to make this 30-some% reduction for the asking. And then if there are funds left over, we can revisit it, obviously, once everything's wrapped up and complete. But I know with all the debt that has been put on our general obligation bonds recently, if there is any leftover revenues, I would probably make the recommendation that we start focusing on relieving that debt quickly.
Anything else? Well, if there's no more questions and no more answers, the meeting is adjourned. Oh, my goodness.
completely understand